Hey everyone, it's Hiro. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'd like to talk about how tolerant Medaka are to low water temperatures. Unlike tropical fish, Medaka are temperate fish that naturally live in Japan, so they can adapt to a wide range of temperatures. Here in Japan, the temperatures start to drop sharply around October as we move from autumn into the cold winter season. I know many of you watching this channel keep Medaka or are thinking about keep them in different parts of the world. So today, I'll be explaining in detail how much cold Medaka can handle, especially for those of you keep them outdoors. If you watch till the end, you'll definitely level up your Medaka keeping skills. On this channel, I, Hiro, a Japanese aquarist, share all kinds of stories and information about beautiful Japanese fish and the aquarium culture here in Japan. If you are interested in that world, don't forget to subscribe. Alright then, let's dive right in. Let's get straight to the answer. Medaka can survive in water temperatures close to 0 degrees Celsius. Surprised? Medaka are truly amazing fish. While Medaka live in small ponds, rice paddies, and irrigation tunnels across Japan. Because Japan is a temperate country with 4 distinct seasons, winter temperatures can drop below freezing in some regions. Over time, Medaka have evolved to survive even in those harsh conditions. And even today, most selectively bred Medaka still retain that natural hardiness inherited from their wild ancestors. However, the environment in nature is very different from what we provide in our ponds or tanks. So, it's not accurate to say that all Medaka can easily handle near freezing water. Depending on the variety and how they've been bred, their cold tolerance can vary slightly. From here, let's take a closer look at what we, Medaka hobbyists, should pay attention to when keeping them in outdoor setup during the colder months. We just talked about how Medaka are very tolerant of low water temperatures. But first, let's review a basic fact about them. Since Medaka are fish, they are cold-blooded animals, meaning their body temperature changes according to the surrounding water temperature, unlike humans. This means their metabolism changes drastically depending on the temperature. When the water is warm, the metabolism increases. They swim actively and eat more. On the other hand, when the water gets cold, their metabolism slows down and they tend to stay still near the bottom, barely eating at all. Because Medaka naturally live in small ponds and irrigation channels, places where water temperature can change quickly, they are quite resilient to sudden changes. However, if the temperature shifts too drastically, it can still cause stress, weaken their immune system, and even lead to illness. In a home aquarium or pond, it's important to adjust feeding and maintenance routines, like water changes, based on their metabolism. Especially in places like Japan, where there are 4 distinct seasons and big temperature swings between summer and winter, you should try to reduce temperature changes gradually and adjust feeding and maintenance accordingly. Also, it's a good idea to always keep basic treatment supplies in hand, such as aquarium salt for salt bath or fish medication, so you can respond quickly if your Medaka become unwell. I've actually made a video about Medaka disease before, so if you are interested, be sure to check that one out too. Feeding is one of the most important aspects of keeping Medaka healthy, and I mentioned earlier, you need to adjust how and when you feed them based on the water temperature. Feeding not only affects their physical health directly, but is also closely related to water quality. Since everyone's setup is different, tank size, shape, water volume, stocking density, and even the type of food. It's hard to give one single rule, but as a general guideline, when the water temperature drops below around 80 degrees Celsius, Medaka start to slow down and eat less. As the temperature continues to drop, their appetite decreases proportionally. Once the temperature goes below 10 degrees Celsius, they hardly eat at all, so feeding usually becomes unnecessary. However, keep in mind that water temperature can fluctuate a lot from day to day, and even within a single day, a difference between daytime and nighttime can be quite large. Sun exposure and location of your tanks or pond also make a big difference in temperature. So when it comes to feeding, it's important to stay flexible and adjust based on the conditions. From my own experience, when the lowest daily temperature stays above 80 degrees Celsius, I usually feed them 2 or 3 times a day in the morning and evening, using high-quality food. As the water starts cooling down, I usually reduce the portion size of each feeding. Then, when the highest daytime temperature is around 18 degrees Celsius and the lowest nighttime temperature is below that, I switch to feeding once a day during the warmest part of the day. Finally, when the temperature drops below 10 degrees Celsius and the Medaka no longer come up to the surface, that's when I completely stop feeding. To successfully overwinter Medaka outdoors, I think it's important to make sure they've grown to a certain size before the cold season begins. In Japan, wild Medaka usually stop spawning naturally around late September, when both daylight hours and the water temperature start to drop. From that point until early November, when the real cold sets in, there is about a month left. If you keep them in good conditions during that period, even a fry born at the very end of the season can grow to about 1 to 1.5 centimeters. From my experience, Medaka that reach around 2 centimeters can overwinter outdoors without any major problems. Those around 1.5 centimeters might still make it through, but it's a bit risky. So, if you plan to keep all your Medaka outdoors through the winter, and you are intentionally breeding them, it's better to stop collecting eggs a little earlier and switch your focus to raising and conditioning the fry instead. If the water temperature drops and some fry are still too small, I usually move those tiny ones indoors and raise them in the tank until spring. Also, for Medaka to survive the winter outdoors, they need to store enough nutrition to get through the long fasting period when they stop eating. Even if a fish is 2 centimeters long, if it's thin and hasn't built up enough body reserves, it may not survive the cold. During winter, Medaka eat very little, almost nothing. So it's crucial to help them build up energy stores beforehand and keeping them in good condition leading up to the cold month. To do that, make sure to feed them properly with high quality, nutritious food during the active season. Now, let's talk about some important tips for successfully overwintering your Medaka outdoors. When it comes to containers, choose one with deeper water rather than a shallow type. A deeper container helps create a gradual temperature difference between the surface and the bottom, which keeps the water more stable. If the water is too shallow, a strong cold wave can chill the entire volume evenly, from top to bottom. And in the worst case, the whole thing might freeze solid. Medaka usually won't die just because the surface freezes over. But no matter how hardy they are, if all the water freezes, they can't survive. By keeping your container deep enough, you can help protect the lower layer from freezing completely. Also, the more water volume you have, the more stable the temperature will stay. which creates a much safer environment for your fish. Larger volume of water also get dirty more slowly and resist sudden temperature swings. Of course, conditions vary greatly depending on where you live. Even within Japan, the climate in Hokkaido in the north and Okinawa in the south is completely different. Still, one basic rule applies everywhere. The larger the water volume, the more stable both water temperature and quality become. This principle isn't just for Medaka, it's true for all fish. Over the years, I've tried many different container shapes, depths, and volumes for my Medaka. In my area, winters aren't extremely harsh, but I've found that a depth of around 30 centimeters and a volume of 30 liters or more allows Medaka to overwinter safely. You might think that my biotop containers, the ones you often see in my videos, aren't really suitable for overwintering. However, the spot where I place them gets plenty of sunlight, which makes a big difference. Considering the mild winters we've had recently, I believe it's unlikely that the water will freeze solid and overwintering should be possible. In fact, I've already successfully overwintered Medaka in that same containers in the past. And if a severe cold wave does hit, don't worry. There are several ways to deal with it, which I'll talk about later in this video. By the way, I plan to post regular updates about my biotopes as well, so stay tuned for those videos. Before the real cold arrives, I recommended doing a major water changes or partial cleanup, basically a reset for your container. There are two main reasons for this. If you live in a region where dragonflies are common, you might be surprised to learn they sometimes lay eggs in Medaka containers without you noticing. By autumn, you might find tiny dragonfly nymphs living inside, and they prey on small fish, including Medaka fly. So if you see dragonflies flying around your setup, it's best to reset the container before winter and remove any hidden nymphs. Otherwise, by spring, you might find that most of your Medaka have disappeared, even without you even realizing it. As I'll explain later, we usually don't perform water changes or cleaning during the winter. Even though Medaka are almost dormant, the water still gets dirty over time. When the temperature drops suddenly, the balance of bacteria in the water can shift, leading to poor water quality and diseases. That's why I recommended giving your container a good cleaning before the cold sets in. Now, in the aquarium world, it's generally not recommended to replace all water or wash the substrate completely, because doing so can kill beneficial bacteria. So yes, resetting everything do come with some drawbacks. But considering the natural resilience of Medaka, I personally think that changing most of the water and removing all waste provides more benefits than risks before winter. Do you use gravel at the bottom of your Medaka container? I often use akadama soil in my setup, but one thing to pay attention to is the grain size. When Medaka enter winter mode, they sometimes try to hide in narrow gaps or small spaces. In the wild, they naturally burrow under fallen leaves to stay warm. In captivity, if your gravel pieces are too large, Medaka might slip into the gaps and get trapped or crushed, which can actually happen. So it's better to use fine or medium-sized substrate rather than large gravel to avoid such accidents. In Japan, some hobbyists intentionally add foreign leaves to their Medaka tubs in autumn. Why? Because southern leaves, especially persimmon leaves, which are common in Japan, are thick and fibrous, and they don't break down quickly. They create a cozy hiding place for Medaka to shelter under during the winter. As the leaves slowly decompose, they even release a small amount of heat, acting like a natural blanket, or even a mini heater. You could say persimmon leaves serve as both the futon and the kotatsu for Medaka in winter. Thin leaves like maple leaves break down faster. Once they completely decompose, they can actually start to rot and pollute the water. As plant matter decomposes, it releases tannins, which tint the water brown and create black water. Black water is known to have mild antibacterial properties. In fact, some aquarium shops in Japan sell dried persimmon leaves specifically for overwintering Medaka. However, don't overdo it, especially in small, closed containers. Too many leaves can lower the pH too much, making the water too acidic. While some tropical fish, like betters, can handle very low pH, Medaka generally prefer neutral to slightly alkaline conditions. To prevent excessive acidity, I usually add a small amount of oyster shell to help buffer the pH. Even if I don't use leaves, I keep a bit of oyster shell in my containers year-round to maintain stable water quality. I personally overwintered Medaka using persimmon leaves before. I don't think it's essential for Medaka keeping, but considering that in nature, leaves naturally accurate in ponds and waterways, adding a few can help create a more neutral and comfortable environment. Just remember, don't add too many, especially in smaller setups. Finally, here is a simple way to prevent heat loss and debris from falling into the water. In Japan, many keepers cover their tubs with transparent polycarbonate sheets. These allow sunlight to pass through while helping retain heat. I don't get much snow in my area, but for those who do, this method can be very effective. When a lot of snow falls directly into the container, the water turns slushy and becomes extremely cold, which stresses the fish. By covering the container, you can prevent snow and debris from getting in and slow down temperature drops. Of course, keep in mind that container shape and water volume still play a big role. No single method is perfect for every situation. One common mistake many people make is consistently checking or storing up their Medaka container during winter. I totally understand. It's natural worry whether your fish are really okay under those cold conditions. But if you keep removing and replacing the cover, or stir the water with a net too often, it can put a lot of stress on the fish. It's fine to monitor the water temperature as a general reference, but once the temperature has dropped for good, try not to touch the container too much. Just leave it alone and patiently wait for spring to come. Modern Medaka have been selectively bred very rapid in recent years. Because their breeding cycles are short, they tend to adapt over generations to the specific environment in which they were raised. That also means if your environment is very different from where the fish were bred, they can easily get stressed or sick. For example, some breeders let the Medaka inside greenhouses year-round. Those fish live in stable conditions. No rain, minimal temperature fluctuation, and relatively warm water even in winter. If you suddenly move them into the outdoor setup exposed to rain, snow, and directive weather changes, it's easy to imagine how that could shock their system. Of course, not everyone can build a greenhouse just for Medaka. That's why the first few generations after purchase are especially important. Your goal should be to gradually adapt the fish your own local conditions without causing unnecessary stress. That process, helping fish adjust your unique environment, is one of the challenging but fascinating parts of the aquarium hobby. As we all know, the climate has become very unpredictable in recent years, not only in Japan but around the world. We get unusually warm winters followed by cold springs, heavy rains, or unexpected snowfalls. Stable seasons are becoming rare. So while the basic points I've shared today still apply, it's important to stay flexible and adapt to changing weather. Don't rely too strictly on temperature numbers alone. Watch your Medaka carefully. If they are swimming actively, go ahead and feed them. If they are sluggish or staying still, stop feeding and let them rest. Adjust things based on your observation rather than rigid rules. So what do you think? If you are keeping Medaka outdoors in a country with 4 distinct seasons, like Japan, winter can definitely feel intimidating at first. I hope today's video helps make that process a little easier for you. Some of the techniques I mentioned might sound detailed, but remember, the most important thing is to enjoy keeping Medaka. It's all about trial and error, learning through experience, and having fun along the way. If you found this video helpful or interesting, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment with your thoughts or questions. Your feedback really motivated me to keep making more videos like this. Let's keep enjoying these wonderful hobbies together. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.